the first thing is to have some knowledge about how the brain works. Brains have lots of different parts to them, and they all have very specific and important jobs that help us do all the things that we like to do. So there's parts of our brain that help us to see things. There's parts of our brain that help us understand what we hear, and parts of our brain that help us make good decisions and to pay attention and really think through things. So all these parts of our brain are working together, and they make connections with each other. And you can imagine it like all these billions of tiny roads in your brain. And some of these roads are like highways. These are the things that your brain does really easily, or things that you've built over time. And so you can imagine the things that you love to do, like maybe you're a soccer player, or you love riding your bike, or math is your favorite subject, your artistic side. And you know how you took all that cardboard the other day and all of a sudden there was a whole city in our living room. Like these are your highways, and we can brainstorm with kids like, what else do you love to do? What else are highways in your brain? We learned about all of those things. And then there's also, it turns out that there are things that are under construction. Just like we have roads that we've already built, we have roads that we're still building. And so we can think of things that we've already built, like you've gotten so good at swimming this past year, or remember you couldn't read when you were in kindergarten and now you're reading as a fourth grader. And then there are some new construction projects we're working on. And so those are the things that are harder. And so you might be able to think of some of those things, like what is your next construction project? So the first step is really getting this vocabulary and getting kids interested in what their highways are and what their construction projects are, so that they get the idea that, okay, my brain, I'm building my brain. I have different things that I'm building. Now, it turns out a lot of brains are built in a way that give you certain highways and certain things that are tricky construction projects. And when we put those things together, it turns out you're not alone. There's lots of people who have brains just like yours. And so I'll start with things like ADHD and autism. It turns out that when we have a brain that has these highways and these construction projects just like yours, we have a special name for it, and it's called ADHD. And it turns out that there's lots of people in the world who have ADHD brains, really important people in the world who have made big changes in the world because of their highways and because of all the work that they've done on their construction projects. And so we can look up people who have been, famous people with ADHD. We can have the same conversation about autism and autistic people who have made a difference in the world, not in spite of, but because they're autistic, because their brains work differently. And we can introduce our kids to those people. And so there are videos and there are lists and there's all kinds of things that we can show kids